It's been said that there are only two things that are certain: death and taxes. Many ministers are surprised to learn that churches have tax-related liabilities and responsibilities, just like individuals. Those ministers have heard that churches are tax-exempt and have taken that to believe that churches have no responsibilities in regards to taxes whatsoever. As we will learn, nothing could be farther from the truth. While churches are tax exempt, that exemption applies in only a limited manner, and it only applies in regards to certain tax liabilities. In other situations, churches are treated just like all other taxpayers and are subject to the same taxes as everyone else. To understand when tax exemption applies, it is necessary for our discussion to begin at the genesis of the tax status of churches, 501c3 status. Let's talk about federal tax exemption, or 501c3. Have you ever used the phrase, "We are a 501c3 tax-exempt organization and therefore we don't have to worry about taxes"? So many that say that do not know what 501c3 says or its origination. Actually, 501c3 comes from the Internal Revenue Code. The provision of the law says that organizations covered under 501c3 are specifically exempt from paying federal income taxes. When you actually read section 501c3 of the tax code, you will not find the word church mentioned. The word church, nor any derivative of such, can be found in section 501c3. The closest word that can be found that ties this section to churches is the language that deals with an entity that is organized and operated exclusively for religious purposes.
Hey, Lori here. You're watching content provided by DOE1. Whether you're at the beginning of your ministry or seasoned, DOE1 is the premier location for all things ministry. Check us out at doe1.org. Now let's get back to your video.
Court decisions, tax rulings, and letter rulings from the Internal Revenue Service over the years have clearly interpreted this language to include both incorporated and unincorporated churches that operate exclusively for religious purposes. An important question is, how does an organization obtain 501c3 status? Most organizations, not including churches, must file an extensive application form with the Internal Revenue Service, either the regular Form 1023 or the shorter Form 1023-EZ, to obtain 501c3 status. Along with that application, a filing fee is required. However, churches do not have to file a Form 1023. If a church is organized as a religious entity, as set out in the Internal Revenue Code, and follows the guidelines in section 501c3, the church is automatically treated as tax exempt under section 501c3 without having to file anything with the Internal Revenue Service. The church will maintain that tax exempt status unless it violates one of the specific provisions of section 501c3, which will be discussed in just a few moments. Again, absolutely no action has to be taken by a church to obtain tax-exempt status. In addition, in October 1972, the Internal Revenue Service issued a group letter ruling to the Church of God denomination. This letter basically provides that all churches that are associated with and follow the tenets and governance doctrines of the Church of God are immediately recognized as tax exempt under section 501c3. This group letter ruling offers another layer of protection on top of the automatic exemption offered to churches that we just discussed. Churches can also lose their 501c3 status, and let me tell you how. Even though your church may have obtained federal tax exemption automatically, it is important to know that a church's 501c3 tax exempt status can be lost. The tax code specifically prohibits 3 different activities by churches and other nonprofits. First, lobbying. The tax code prohibits a substantial part of the church's funds from being used for legislative lobbying. Some lobbying is allowed, but not a substantial amount. Secondly, political activity. All tax-exempt entities are outright prohibited from participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for public office. Your church can never be seen as supporting or opposing any political candidate. Third, inurement. No part of the organization's net earnings can inure to the benefit of a shareholder or an individual. While a church or any other organization covered under Section 501c3 can pay staff members, including pastors, the compensation must be appropriate for the duties performed. Excessive inurement can raise questions about the organization's tax-exempt status. In a church setting, this issue often arises when a local congregation wants to give the pastor an expensive gift, such as a house. Finally, remember the great benefit of the 501c3 status. Having tax exemption keeps your church from having to pay income tax, both federal and state, on the funds that come into your church, which represents a 15 to 40% savings on every dollar taken in by the church. Therefore, it's important for you to make every effort to protect your church's tax-exempt status and the great financial benefit it brings.
Hey, Lori here. If you like what you were watching, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click on the bell to receive notifications when new content goes live. You can find content like this on DOE1, the premier location for all things ministry. See you on the next video.